Welcome to End Times Matrix News. Continuing with Anthony Patch. This is show 2 for this get together that we're having today. This section of the show is called "The Return of the Titans: Days of Noah," and we're going to start off with Chris. She has another video presentation. This is fascinating stuff that's going on right now as we speak today. Things related to today. We like to stay right on top of all of current events as they relate to the end times and watching the CERN event. So when she's ready, we'll go ahead and click on and highlight her show.
I'm ready.
All right, we got it. Tunnel vision, going into the rabbit hole.
Good.
All right. And so we can see the presentation here. We're going to start it off talking about Ceres, the dwarf planet. And Tim, do you want to start off on talking about the article that you sent me in the slew that you're watching with Ceres?
Well, I became really interested in Ceres because I like to observe the scientific community, and I also was very interested in things related to Saturn. And when we looked at all the satellites of Saturn, we saw that all the names of the satellites of Saturn are deities' names. When they would run out of Roman deities, they would go to Greek deities. When they ran out of that, they go to Norse deities. They just kept, stringing these things out, as many as they could find. They found a god to name them. So it just seemed like there was this concentric concentration of deities, and we know NASA and all these space agencies always have certain names for the Jupiter or just Saturn rockets, or you look at the different rockets for the Apollo rockets, and then we look at the what's the SpaceX now? We got the SpaceX and the Phoenix booster rockets, or the Phoenix rockets that they do. So they're this Freemason Nazi Saturn worshiping occult agenda of science. These good scientists that don't have any spiritual beliefs. Sure they don't. But Ceres is this dwarf planet, and I just got fascinated with it because I found out that JPL, a Jack Parsons Laboratory, better known as the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, but really Jack Parsons Laboratory.
It is.
It was sending the Dawn probe, Dawn of a New Age, get it, to Ceres. And what's neat about it is today, as of this reporting, today is March 6th. So you have the 3 6s, and the Jack Parsons Laboratory Dawn mission to Ceres is now in orbit as of 666. So here we go again.
and for those who may not know who Jack Parsons is, he was an illuminist going back to in the Hollywood Hills, Malibu. He was tied in with the formation of the illuminist as we know them today in our modern society. Quite the occultist. And he was tied in with Hollywood bigwigs as well.
Yeah, Jack Parsons was buddy-buddy with L. Ron Hubbard, and they were the disciples of Aleister Crowley.
Right.
So we have Scientology with L. Ron Hubbard, and we got, Jack Parsons' claim to fame was that his rocket fuel was what got him on contracts with the government, and his JPL became the only private recipient at that time of government contracts for some reason. And it's JPL is one of those real this Dawn probe has an ion propulsion system. Very fascinating to allow it to travel out this far, and it was in what was the name of it? Europa? Were they in the orbit of Europa and then went to Ceres? It was designed to go into multiple orbits, because of the way that the ion propulsion unit operates. It was to allow, instead of the traditional way where you just shoot a rocket at one object and that's it, this one could redirect and continue in multiple directions over time. So it allowed it to go into orbit around several objects. And they just designed, it was shot about, it was launched about 7 years ago. Or in 2007 or it's 2008, I can't remember which one. But the point is, it entered orbit of Ceres on 666. And if you know Ceres, it's a dwarf planet outside of Saturn. And we have our solar event, our solar eclipse coming up on 3/20. It's convenient timing. And then, of course, it's going to be orbiting around Ceres for the next year to year and a half, as they say. And that means that it's going to be here for all our big CERN power-ups. And so any of us who like to talk about Saturn, the plasma conduits, we haven't really talked about that yet, and Saturn and portals, the movie Interstellar, and wormholes and portals to Saturn, the abyss, the pit, all these fun things are all connected to this topic possibly. And so that's my series input for this show.
And a footnote are the two headlights, as I call them, that are illuminating on the surface of Ceres.
I think Chris might have that clip when she gets back. I did send her that photo. It's a nice Ceres photo back and front, or both sides of Ceres, and it does have the two. I think they call them cryo volcanic possibility of like what do you want to say, ice volcanoes or something.
Right, an eruption. So what's the big deal with Ceres? Why are they going there?
Yeah, that's the $50 million question. Why are we orbiting? It's to look at a dwarf star up close for the first time, is what they're saying. We also have another dwarf star that's in the conspiracy realm that is supposed to be drifting around out there somewhere.
Right.
So dwarf stars are interesting all of a sudden.
Why are they calling it a dwarf planet or a dwarf star and not a moon?
That's really, yeah. Why? Is it too big for a satellite?
Well, does it orbit Saturn?
Well, I thought we had Chris there for a second.
I'm here. I was just waiting on you guys to.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, I sent an article that came from JPL today. I didn't know if you want to pull that up, or did you have that double?
You can see my presentation, right? I was going to continue when you were ready.
Yeah. Go ahead then. We'll just let you go.
Okay. Well, one other thing I wanted to say, where you were talking about Europa, and Europa is also a sister of Cadmus, and she was actually taken by Zeus, and they had a child, but that's another story. But Europa is a moon of Saturn. Saturn is known to some as a dwarf planet, and the way that the dwarf planets are very interesting. But Europa has volcanoes and oceans, and if you see the Mithra stones, and they were in many of the caves and in the Jupiter temples, and you can see Europa stabbing the bull with the 7 stars on her cape. That's who that is, and she has the funny little Smurf-looking hat. Ceres is the female aspect of Saturn.
Okay.
Saturn has a male and a female aspect. That's why I said, too, that some people see Saturn as a dwarf planet, too. But Ceres is also Sibyl and Demeter. You can see her here with this sickle like Saturn. She's also the god of time, fertility of grain, finances, and this ties into the Shemitah year. This is a coin with her on the front and Saturn on the back with the trident.
Mm-hmm.
I know that Poseidon carries the trident, but Saturn is also Neptune. He represents Neptune also. It took me a long time to understand that, but he does. So she, we're in the Shemitah year, and she's the goddess of finances, agriculture. This ties into the maize and the crops and the harvest with the wheat and the tares. Sybil has, here she is here, she always has the chariot with the two lions, and this is representative of the sun. And she has a key, and so does Janus. So Sybil has one key, and Janus has the other key. And Janus is Saturn's brother. He has 3 faces, but you normally just see 2. And he is the god of doors, so he can go in different directions. And so anyway, sorry about that. My dog kind of got out of control. But I'm okay. I'm sorry too. So anyway, continuing on with this, with series, I'm trying to find a place to go where it's quiet. I'm so sorry about that. So if you see her standing on a lion with minis, he's the black god of the dead. It's part of that process too. During a time, she stands on the lion with Nurgle on the other side, and these are like, they're gods of the dead. And here's another picture of her. All over the world, the gods have this, like, 2 things in their hands, usually a snake, and that's another picture of her with the grains and the snakes in her hands. Snake worship is all over the world, so in most religions. And here is, she has this in her hand. This is like a key, or kind of like the Vajji, the lightning bolt here. And here she has the Saturn crescent on her head, just like Hermes does on his symbol. This is a little notation that I found about the fruits of the seasons offered to the gods of the farm and the field. And Ceres received the first corn, Dionysus the first grapes. So did Saturn, so he represents Saturn. And Athena that the first olives. So there's like these festivals that they have, and they're not good festivals. You would have to look more into that. But all these gods of the dead, they're like they seem all nice when you look at their statues and you look at the Egyptian artifacts and all these things, but the real story behind them we won't get into is not very good. Here's another statue of her. It's a weird one, but this is, see this thing on her head? This is the same thing that Seriphus and Jupiter. You can look at the Jupiter statues of Zeus, and he has the same thing on his head. And she's here showing with different faces, I guess like 4 faces, and she represents Saturn. And here she is with her in a museum with the 2 lions. This is Sybil. She represents different goddesses, but in different languages. Here she is on a lion here. But this ties into the Shemitah year. This is another calendar here with the 49 years that ends in 2015. And this is the black sackcloth sun that we're going to have on March the 20th. And then we have these 2. This is the full moon of Sukkot. Mm-hmm. But those are all the pictures that I really have. This is the most interesting one that I have here. But she does represent both Saturn, and she has a key. Saturn is in the abyss. He is in the netherworld, so that's why Saturn is in the position it's in, and it is in the netherworld, and it has those rings around it that some researchers say that they're crystals or whatever. But that's all I have there, and I'll show Tim's other information when he's ready. But did you want to comment on any of these things, or Anything, Tim or Anthony?
I'll let Anthony.
Just real quick, the wheat and the tares. You've got the sickle and you've got the harvest going on with Ceres there, or Demeter. Obviously, the wheat and the tares relates to the rapture.
Yeah. And so does Ceres. I mean, I guess Ceres is a planet that's coming into our solar system, and it's not supposed to, from what I understand. And it's a dwarf planet, and they're what the dwarf planets are made of, and they're very interesting planets.
So that's why they call Ceres a planet, because it's not an orbiting moon around Saturn or Jupiter?
Yeah, because it's a dwarf planet. All these dwarf planets, just, you start reading about all these different dwarf planets that's come up recently. I think Eris is another one. But I wish I had more time to work on this, because Mercury rules over Mars, and I think Ceres is like a destroyer type planet in that aspect in mythology. So I didn't have a chance to look all up that, or the fact that with this harvest and the corn, with the corn maze, and I know that Round Saturn's Eye did a video on the corn maze and how our DNA is connected to corn. And it was quite an interesting, I wish I had that video too. Tim just kind of was telling me about this morning, so I didn't have a lot of time to put it together, but we have time to do another show next time.
Sure.
And add all.
We can always add on stuff. Why it was interesting is that it's a breaking story today with the Dawn circling Ceres, and then we have it connected to the wheat and the tares. We have it connected to a possible, there's all kinds of, we know we have a Saturn worshiping group of elite. Again, we know the Lucifer telescope is a infrared telescope that looks for these dwarf stars. That's one of their objects that they look for, is these dwarfs drifting out there that don't put off light, but they put off this infrared heat signature that they're there. And this is part of what the Vatican is always out there looking at these things. So my mind jumps to, okay, well, if we're looking at a connection between the Saturn and breaking out of the abyss and connecting with the plasma conduit to this CERN event or whatever it is this this satellite a signaling end of a wormhole kind of a thing to send signals and communicate. I don't know. But the point is, why do they have it out there?
Right. Let me do my leap then.
Okay.
Dwarf stars oftentimes are neutron stars. Neutron stars form from strangelets.
Oh, wow.
When strangelets, we discussed this about the Earth being converted, terraformed. If the strangelets go to the core of the Earth, then ostensibly what they do is they attract other atoms to themselves, thus converting the entire planet into a neutron star. And a neutron star does not give off any light because of its gravitational attraction, its density, much like a black hole doesn't give off light. So if in fact Ceres, and I'll have to dig into this, because I've been so distracted with other things, I haven't followed Ceres. But if in fact it is a neutron star and it is comprised of strangelets, then my thinking is, will Ceres move closer to Saturn? And if it does move closer to Saturn, will it provide the ability to facilitate the connection between Earth and Saturn again at the southern pole of Saturn with the plasma conduit?
Wow. That's really interesting.
Yeah, we'll have to look more into that. But also, I forgot to say that her name is also Rhea, R-H-E-A. I mean, that's, and she's also connected to the two ladies. She's one of the two ladies of the Upper and Lower Egypt too. So the Wadget, the snake. She's the one that represents the snake. So.
Well, let's the three of us try to look at the path, the orbital pathway or the directional pathway of Ceres, and see where it is headed. Maybe Stellarium or one of those software programs will tell us, or someone will put a video out that'll tell us where it is moving. If it's moving into our solar system, obviously there's a path, a flight path, and we can tell, what's going on in terms of its relationship to Saturn.
Yeah, I have some videos showing it coming into our solar system. I can send them to you.
Okay. Then that would give us the timing as to the closest contact between the best alignment between the bodies, the objects. Then.
Right. Exactly.
And these gods from the abyss, like Saturn, these represent the Titans. And then, like in the days of Noah, it'll be today. And so if it's going to be like the days of Noah and the abyss is going to open, that means it's going to be the return of the Titans. And so that's part of the end times scenario.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we have the neutron star that we have to check on that and what that means. Good.
Did you want me to go ahead and go into your story, your robot story?
Sure, absolutely. There's another event that's occurring today in the pop culture that's connected with the artificial intelligence of the 2048. This is from the directors of District 9. Okay, which was a alien kind of UFO hovering over a city kind of a thing, and Elysium, which is the Plato's Republic, where the elites live there up on Mount Olympus, looking down upon the peasants of Earth. That's what Elysium is. This Chappie thing here is the Terminator movie. This is a military robot that is captured and rewired and becomes AI and learns as a child. So here you have Mama, Papa, Chappie. And looks like you got a W there.
I have the little video to show in the website on this, but I just wanted to comment and say this Elysium is a place in mythology. Jupiter allowed, I guess, himself, which is his father, to be inside of this other area of the bottomless pit, which is called the Elysium. It is an area of one of the levels of hell.
Yes, you see Elysium Fields portrayed in Gladiator with Russell Crowe, if you want to see that. Elysium is also, usually you get the inner Elysium based on dying in a valiant way in battle. So you go to Elysium Fields. That's one of the other side things. So, yeah. So go ahead with the Chappie stuff here. We got such a cute little AI that's going to terminate us.
So here's the video on that if you want to see it real quick.
Sure, running for the folks. This is their video, and we're not modifying it. So.
Yeah, plus the plot. I thought sounded really interesting. The idea of a sentient robot.
That's not the one I wanted to show. I'm so sorry.
Okay.
The deployment of the planet's first robotic police units became the focus of the world in 2016.
Drop your weapons. You are under arrest.
Vincent Moore is a former soldier.
Problem with artificial intelligence is it's way too unpredictable.
The Scout's creator, Dion Wilson, sees a rich future.
What interests me is a machine that can think and feel. I have a robot that is operated by a thinking human being. We don't want this. It's expensive, it's big, and it's ugly.
The Scouts are a huge success. Stop worrying about these pet projects.
This is a new kind of life form, a new step in evolution. you up, Chappie.
Chappie.
It's like a child. It has to learn.
What's that? Chappie's book?
Yeah, sure.
Chappie's got stories. Chappie's got a book.
Anything you want to do in your life, you can do. Write poetry, have original ideas.
Chappie wants to paint.
Wow. What in the name of the Lord?
You know, robot's a big problem for me.
A thinking robot could be the end of mankind.
Destroy that robot.
Burn it to ash.
There's something of great danger headed our way now.
I don't want to die. I want to live. If you want to survive, Chappie, you must fight.
Mayhem downtown as police have begun shutting down.
My business. You think you're real?
You don't get away with this.
He's special. I am consciousness. I am alive. I am Chappie.
So you got the famous quote of "I think, therefore I am."
I am consciousness.
Yes, I am alive. I think, therefore I am. Self-awareness.
Do as I will.
It's they like to promote sympathy for the devil is the term that I term is to they try to make it anthropomorphic in the sense that they try to take something that's not human and make it seem human, so that you attribute a childlike, and this is how they've always manipulated us, is anything you see on TV today, they hold a child up in front of them when they're arguing for something, and everybody goes, oh, it's a child, and they drop their guard. Same thing with a Terminator robot.
Right. Sigourney Weaver, she says, burn it to ash. That's presupposing that it is comprised of carbon and phosphorus. And interesting that you have focused, Chris, on phosphorus lately, and that when you burn phosphorus, it turns to an ash. It is a light in its atomic form. Phosphorus is light, and she's commanding them to burn a robot to ash, but it's comprised of metal and plastic. Therefore, it will not turn to ash.
Wow. That's interesting. You know, the mark of the beast has a lot to do with ash and the bull. You know, they mix the bull's blood, and you see the Catholic priests do the haw cross on people's heads with the ash, and that's the another resemblance of the mark of the beast that they use. And I know Tim was talking about the ash being let out in the chemtrails and wondering how that had something to do with CERN, because we know that chemtrails have a lot to do with what they're doing in CERN too. So, and the ashes are really interesting, just like the ashes from when the Jews were killed in the Holocaust. There's possibly a connection with their DNA and why they wanted to do this.
Reduce them to ash. Plus, you look at Ash Wednesday in the Catholic religion and the cross on the forehead using ash. Also, what I take from this is not just the ash presupposing that it's made of carbon as we are, and phosphorus. We're comprised of 100 different elements, but they're focusing on consciousness as well. And when we talk about artificial intelligence, there's the building of the machinery, there's the building of the computer, and that's all well and good. But as philosophers of old have always tried to pin down and define what is consciousness. And that's been the struggle in philosophy for as long as man has been around. How do you define? How do you put your finger on it? from a physics standpoint, how do you create consciousness? That is the elemental question in artificial intelligence. When we get into talking about whether or not a computer is sentient, if it's self-aware, if it recognizes itself in the mirror, does it have a sense of its mortality or immortality? That's being sentient. But is that consciousness? And we can go into a long philosophical discussion, but the point is, to me at least, to achieve a sentient status as a computer, whether it's Chappie or anybody else, you have to have a soul, or you have to have a spirit, however you want to define it. If we are talking about opening a portal and these host bodies being receptacles for these spirits, be they the artificially constructed host bodies that we talked about in the previous video a little bit ago today, or human bodies that are being prepared through chemtrails or other mechanisms, again for the reception of spirits into humans that are alive today and will be alive at the time of the portal being open, then you have the ability to say, well, those bodies now have a consciousness to them, and they are sentient. If we're talking about building an artificially constructed beast, and that beast being controlled by a artificially intelligent quantum computer, the 2048, now we have to impart upon that beast a spirit or a soul or a consciousness as well.
Yeah, that's just for people's. This Chappie thing was released today. Same dynamic here with the 666 or the 3 sixes as with the series dynamic. And the origin of the name, I was trying to track down the origins of this Chappie name. It's a French derivation of Chapin, and it means clergyman, you know. Yes, so it's kind of one of these interesting, our new religion of transhumanism and AI, and
yep.
So we're doing the Shiva dance, whether you like it or not. They're tearing down the old, and they are creating the new, and that is what is going on. Chappie is the new, the evolved, new consciousness. And whatever man will evolve. Remember, directed evolution means evolution with a gun to your head. Okay? There is no evolution unless these guys force it, you know? And that's what they're doing. They're forcing this stuff by violating all the moral codes of humanity to make this happen.
Yep.
Now, well, the word in the Bible, the mark of the beast, is force. So it will be forced upon people that have not accepted Jesus Christ. The mark of the beast will be forced. And, you know, when we were talking about consciousness, and I know we're working on something for later with the tree of life and the worm and the, you know, the consciousness and everything like that, with the pine cone being the top of the caduceus of Osiris. But in the Garden of Eden, you still, in the correct translation, there are 2 trees in the garden. You know, one of them is a tree of consciousness, and when Adam and Eve took from that DNA tree from Samael in the garden, they took on that consciousness. They fed into whatever he wanted them to believe, and that is the same exact thing that is going to happen with these end times, with people that are going to marvel after this computer and want to plug in and evolve to a certain level of consciousness. That's the same exact thing.
Agreed. Yep.
The other tree is the tree of immortality. They were forced out of the garden and out of paradise, and that tree does represent Jesus Christ, and he is the only gate to heaven. And so, you know, it's like, you know, when people we've talked before about the 7 chakras and the chanting with the spirit. there's only one Holy Spirit, and that comes from the seed of the heart, from the love of God. And so you just can't mix all of these things with God and His Holy Spirit because they're completely different from these things and the trick of Satan into the world. That's why the Lord tells us don't be conformed to the patterns of the world. And when we see all the celebrities flipping up all these signs, those are the patterns of the world. Some of the music that they play, Round Saturn's Eye has found very old voodoo dancing and cutting the chickens and doing all the black magic and everything. And that music is the exact same thing as a lot of the entertainment industry and celebrities. They make this music based on a lot of those voodoo dances. Will be the exact same moves, and he'll show like both videos, and I'm like, wow, that is very interesting that they're tuning into that frequency with your consciousness and going on to that rhythm like the beehive and the frequency. You know, that's why Jesus told us not to be conformed to these things and not to believe man and not to be connected to these things in the world, but to know Him and to know Him by His Word. And, you know, we know Him. All three of us know the Lord, and that's how we came together, just like you said earlier, Anthony. And that's why we're here, is to, you know, show what's going on in the world and research things and try to understand these end times and what's going on, because we're all a part of this world right now until the Lord comes. And CERN is a big beast machine. That machine is a very dangerous machine, and people need to understand what that machine is and what the quantum computer is and how it's going to change the future. It's very important because it's going to change the future, and most people aren't aware of that. They're not aware of how close it is that they're doing these changes and the things that they're going to be doing.
I just want to add a quick little thing with since we've been talking about the helix and the triple helix and the winding and the godhood and immortality, the pop culture reference, and I'm climbing the stairway to heaven, which is one of the most famous ones, makes me think that their evolution into godhood is climbing the triple helix to godhood. Just my adding on to your discussion there. Just that's what crossed my mind.
Yeah,
Like Jacob's
exactly, Jacob's ladder. It's interesting. There was another conversation I was having with some people this week, and one of the points was that so few people, when asked, "Do you know about CERN? Have you ever heard of the Large Hadron Collider?" And the comment was from this person who was asking multiple people this question. Many people had never heard of it. Certainly they had heard of the God particle, but when you ask specifically, have you ever heard of the Large Hadron Collider, the eyes just glaze over. So there's been a significant cover-up that's been going on in the form of distraction, in the form of movies and television shows. Nobody's talking about this in that popular culture venue. They're keeping it out of the movies. You don't see any movies on that, other than Angels and Demons that came out with Tom Hanks back in, I think, 2008 or something.
Well, I will tell you then why I watch these movies, and these movies are horrible because Hollywood they're horrible at story writing. They're about propaganda and feeding the beast. But the I, Frankenstein movie, for those who want to watch a movie that is about releasing the demonic from the portal into the thousands and thousands and thousands of bodies that have been prepared for the demons to possess and then take over the earth. The I, Frankenstein is this exact topic that we're talking about. A soulless creation. You can find this on Netflix if you want to. But it is exactly the conversation here. The good versus evil is the good is it's more of a Catholic spinoff, but it has the what do they call those stone? The gargoyles are the good guys instead of saying angels, but they have a connection to heaven, which is whatever. But the demons are funding the scientists to reanimate life, and then when the scientists reanimate life, they do away with the scientists. They don't need them anymore.
That's right.
And the point is, they release out of this humongous pit this demonic flow of the opening the pit of these demons coming up to fill these tens of thousands of corpses that they have just sitting there dangling, waiting to be filled by these spirits. This is the CERN portal Saturn connection, right in the movie I, Frankenstein. So
now let me stop you there for a second. I want the audience to understand. I purposefully keep myself disconnected from all of this stuff. Yes, I went to see Interstellar and a few of the other movies, Imitation Game, but I haven't owned a television in 4 years. I don't watch television. I don't watch movies on Netflix. Very selectively will I look at a movie. Now, this I, Frankenstein, I had no clue about. I'm going to go look at that for obvious reasons. But the reason that I have somewhat created this monk-like existence for myself, yes, I have a regular job and do all those normal things, but is so that I don't pollute what I believe the Holy Spirit is trying to guide me towards in terms of research and going down rabbit holes and writing the books that I write. I don't want this infusion of this other stuff to get in there and lead me astray. I want to stay on the path, the straight and narrow that He's got me on. So then when you tell me about a movie like I, Frankenstein, it just blows my mind because it's right there. I'm not a prophet. I keep telling you guys that stuff, but I'm just trying to reinforce the fact that I'm not pumping myself up or putting myself up on a pedestal. I'm simply saying this blows my mind because then I see the things that popular culture is putting out that reinforce and reconfirm to me that I'm on the right track.
Yeah, and I've, before I got onto this path, I sold all my DVDs, movies, and I had stopped watching movies and TV. But the Lord said that to me that if you want to understand the enemy, you enter their camp and do recon. And so my mission's always been recon. It's not because they produce anything worth watching. It's because that was my mission, which is different than Anthony's.
Right.
Yeah, I agree, Anthony. My kids ask me why I don't watch TV, and I said, well, that's mind trash. That's just mind trash. But I don't want to pollute my mind either, and I went many years without watching it. My family would watch movies, and I always say, no, I don't want to watch that. And so they know me. They know I don't want to watch any movies. They can go in the other room. I wish we didn't have TVs at all in our house. If it was up to me, there wouldn't be any. I'm not worried about watching certain things to learn from like Tim, and I pray, and I know that God protects my mind, but He has a purpose for all of us, and but we do get distracted, and the big picture is that with Project Paperclip and all these things through the Germans and all of this stuff through the technology they have, they can put a person right in front of you and they can disappear, and they will look very real, and they do have that technology right now. You can not even have a TV and have it holographically put in your house. That's the technology that they have. But
the TVs are being used to make everybody be asleep, just as in the Wizard of Oz, where they're all in the poppy field falling asleep. That is what TV is for, and TV is to keep us in a daze.
Yep.
And you need to remember that. It is a Saturn box. If you look at the square object in front of you, shooting an image out, it is the Saturn cube shooting it into you, your Oculus. You are receiving the programming from Saturn. And it's if you look at Saturn and the planet and the portal, the tunnel through the middle between the cube to the Oculus, you see exactly. And also when they flip screens on you, that is the spirit traveling through the box and being refracted onto your eye. So it's almost like the travel of the spirit through the box into you. So it's a very bizarre even because cameras work that way. They shoot an image and refract, and your eye also works the same way. It shoots an image upside down and refracts back to the flips, you know. So they obviously are showing you how you're programmed. And
but then if you're Jonathan Kleck, you refract again.
He turns everything upside down, and he's shown us some crazy stuff, which is right there. He's right.
Yep.
They can also put images that go across your screen so fast that you won't even see them, and they go inside of your consciousness.
Yeah, if we didn't have TVs, everybody would snap out of it, and they couldn't do this garbage. They couldn't take over. None of them could take over. But we're in a daze. We're linked in. We got our cell phones that we're looking at. We're texting. Everybody looks down now. They don't look at the sky. They look down at their hand, and they look at the TV. So they try to get you to go from one stupid Katy Perry ceremony to the next Madonna ceremony to the next Jay-Z ceremony, and keep your brain just, you know, doped up.
I'll never forget about 3 years ago, I was walking with a friend, and I said, have you ever heard of chemtrails? And she said, no. What are they? I said, look straight up. And there was a perfect pattern that day. And she said, I don't understand. What do you mean? What are we looking at? Aren't those clouds? And of course I had to go into the explanation. But you're exactly right. Everybody's looking down. And even if they do look up at the sky, they don't even know what they're looking at.
Yeah, people forget. I was talking to kids the other day. I said, when's the last time you saw a dragonfly? When's the last time you saw a butterfly? When's the last time you heard a cricket? When's the last time you heard a frog? And I just keep going down the list. All these things are died off, you know. They're very limited, and you barely ever see them. I grew up with dragonflies all over me growing up, and butterflies all over me. And, you know, they're killing off everything that carries pollen around, you know. And it's like they have destroyed the atmosphere. And they have these clouds are not even real. And when you look at these clouds, they're wispy little thin things. They're not like the full old style clouds, you know.
Chris, go ahead.
Tim is he cracks me up. You know, I think was he like a flower? No, I'm just kidding. But he makes me laugh even when he doesn't try to. So.
Oh, I know. I make everybody laugh or cry, one of the two. It's either one of the two.
Yeah. Well, you know, the chemtrails, I think that there are some lawsuits that have been filed, and people are starting to wake up and be aware of those things and come together. And you know, just like with Monsanto, they were so powerful in the government that no one could beat them. But Hawaii changed their laws, and they're not allowed to put GMOs, or they say they're not, into their food. And so most people are waking up to GMOs and what they are, and they're poisoning us. There's so many people that are coming up with autoimmune diseases and being ill and not understanding why, and all the stress that, I mean, our world normally was not like this before. We weren't stressed out. People were enjoying their family and, you know, get-togethers, and not that we do now, but it's different. There's like a stress barrier there that wasn't there before, and I think most people realize that. The closer we get, but the more people research, they'll realize the truth and the big picture of who's running things here, and what they're doing, and how they want to depopulate us, just like the Georgia Guidestone says. We're not important to them, and they don't care.
You know, there was a question posed to me a couple of days ago, and that related back to CERN and whether or not the machine is even in the Bible, and its activities and the goals and the opening of a portal. So maybe I'm kind of throwing that at you without any preparation, but my sense of it is it doesn't have to be in the Bible. It's here, and it's part of their agenda. And whether or not it's successful in terms of opening the portal and the spirits coming through or not, doesn't have to be in the Bible as far as I'm concerned. I'm on a path right now of researching to see if it is cryptically or symbolically represented. So I kind of toss it to you guys to do some research as well. Especially Chris, I mean, you in the ancient studies, you would be able to answer that better than I could. Tim, I'm sure you are more familiar with Scripture than I am in the modern times. So I throw it to you guys, but I don't think it should discourage us from the path of paying attention to CERN, understanding what their purposes are, and yes, the machine is fragile, and they may not be successful in doing any of these things, and none of it may happen this year. But I think that we've connected enough dots to be able to say it does fit with the Bible in terms of the end time activities, the opening of the pit in the Bible. Certainly, I think is CERN.
Well, I don't have a problem with having to prove that CERN is named in the Bible. I see that the Watchers knew that their destruction was coming. I see that they're being told in the book of Enoch that their judgment coming down on your kids and on you. And you can tell through the megalithic structures built around the globe that they were trying to prevent the wrath of God from being able to wipe them off the map. Even in the construction of the Tower of Babel, the Dr. Lake's book on the Shinar, what's it called? The Shinar Directive or something. He discusses how the Tower of Babel is built to be above the flood level that occurred in the days of Noah, knowing that God might try to wipe them out again for what they're trying to do. So the point is, they knew judgment's coming, and they were preparing for it. These people are involved with opening these portals. To a certain degree, I don't know, the Luciferians, of course, are demon-possessed. Those guys are demon-possessed. The Rothschild level guys that have been backing this and funding this and putting all the resources. These are demon-possessed family lines, that are part of this movement. So I don't really have a problem with CERN itself.
Well, it's an interesting machine for sure, and there's a lot of watchers out there that have many blogs on, what the Shiva dancer means, and maybe to the New Agers that's happy, and we're going to have a new world to come. And I know the Jews have their reserve telephone that's for the new world to come, like we talked in our show yesterday. But CERN is a big deal, and it is powering up this month, and we do have the Black Sackcloth Sun this month, and the Purim holiday that we just had, the Jews did, and so it's just interesting.
I'm getting an echo back. Can you hear that I'm getting an echo? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know what happened there. Let me just see. Let me just turn off my.
I'll point out something.
I'll point out something.
The 20th
The 20th
of March is Friday when
March
we
is
normally
Friday
do
when
our
we normally
shows,
do our shows,
and that's the
and
eclipse.
that's the eclipse.
I think we need to do a
I
special
think we need to do
show.
a special show.
Okay. Isn't there some type of energy that can knock out some of the systems from that?
Well, we could have
Can they-
Well,
coronal
we could
mass
have coronal
ejections.
mass ejections.
Okay.
I'm getting a lot of
I'm
feedback.
getting a lot
too.
of feedback too.
I'm not. I don't have any headphones. Maybe that's why.
Do you have a page
Do you-
open by
Do
accident
you have a page open by accident
of the show playing along?
of
as
the
we-
show playing along as we're
Make sure you close your
make sure
pages.
you close your pages?
Go ahead. Is
I
that
don't know.
better?
I don't know.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
That's okay.
That was your robot page, Tim.
Okay, let's see.
Okay. Let's see.
No, I'm still getting feedback.
I'm still getting
myself.
feedback myself.
Well, maybe we should just.
Well, maybe we should just. Yep.
Yeah, let's just call it
Yeah,
a
let's just
show
call
for
it a
today.
show for today.
And for some reason, we're
And
getting
for some reason,
feedback.
we're getting feedback.
And we don't want to torture the
We don't
people.
want to torture the people.
Okay.
All right, well, you guys have
All
a
right,
good
well,
day.
you guys have a
everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.